Hello everyone, it's me Jenny and it's time for another movie review, and today I'm going to be talking about the Grand Budapest Hotel. I wanted to see something new and something off-kilter, and I've heard nothing but good things about this film from movie fans, and my quick review is I really love this film. It's not a passionate film, but it is about passions. It's very, very clever and funny without being too condescending. It's witty and just, I really, really enjoyed this film. I laughed out loud once, but for the rest of it I just found myself happily content. As I scrolled through Wes Anderson's repertoire after watching this film, and I was surprised that I hadn't really seen any of his films, and I think I've seen like analysis of his work before. I think I watched maybe Every Frame a Painting, which is a great YouTube channel. You should check it out if you're a fan of critical movie viewing and cinema in general. And so watching that, somewhere in the back of my brain, knowing the kind of rules of his system, I was endlessly fascinated by the direction of this film. The fact that it's shot not in widescreen, that it's shot in very thin frame, very, very nostalgic to 50s films. So many references are made to 50s film in this, from the fact that almost every shot is in some way symmetrical. The details in the background, the textures and the conflicting colours and the depth of field is something that you very rarely see. It's something that kind of like and I hate to bring up this film while discussing the Grand Budapest Hotel, but Resident Evil 4 is not a good film. And they specifically designed the shots to have great depth of frame so that the 3D works, because the 3D is a great gimmick. While this film has intense depth of field, you can see stuff going in the foreground, stuff going in the background. There's movement in the frame as well as stationary. Like the camera doesn't move and the set doesn't move, and yet you're entranced by what's going on the screen because there's so much going on. And it's very, very simple. As I said, the camera either does single shots or it does slide pans. There's movement of people going across or through, or it's a very linear shot movement. And again, I'm sure that some of these thoughts I've had are inspired by having watched a video a long time ago about the shot analysis of Wes Anderson, but I felt that sort of resonant control and calm, which runs with the whole theme of this movie. The fact that it's about control and sophistication and grace under pressure. The fact that there's a lot of comedy in this about the ridiculousness of a lot of the situations, but it's all taken with a sense of, right, let's get on with it, keep calm and carry on, except not particularly British in mentality. It has got that same sort of kilter. It's very witty and very dry. The concept of politeness over morality, perhaps, is a very interesting one, especially with the fact that they discuss some very, what would be considered vulgar topics, and yet it's done in such a charming way. You can kind of settle into it, even though what's happening on screen might be a little bit off-putting occasionally. It's just done with such a sense of charm and grace that you can just enjoy it. As I said, I laughed out loud once. That was the scene in the confessional booth, and there was that one line that it caught me just right off, laughed out loud. But a lot of the other parts I was just generally smiling. There's a lot of things like the way that the characters move, the briskness of pace, both when characters running somehow is funny in this film. Characters walking with a brisk pace is somehow funny. The way that they control the movements of the characters and the movements of the camera. So it's very, as I said, very linear. It's funny. There's so much visual comedy because there's such a depth of frame. There's so much going on that you can read into things or not read into things, but I just found it intoxicatingly depth of fieldy. And that goes for both the visuals, the acting, and the script. And the script in this is really good because so much of the visuals are very, very reminiscent of 50s film. It's like the way that they use these actual proper sets, the very, very deep sets where you have the depth of field, you have the multi-layers, and yet all of the wide shots, all of the kind of setting the scene shots are like paper cutouts. It's very reminiscent of children's books and of old films where they wouldn't have had the budget to do a car chase, or in this case a chase through the snowy wood, which is delightfully well done because it's cartoonish and somehow it does fit in this really weird world. and it's very, very reminiscent of classic film and classic comedy, and yet the script brings it into a very modern place in terms of some of the language use and some of the topics that are discussed. It's not prim and proper, but it puts on a delightful facade of prim and proper to the point where you don't mind the vulgarisms because it is so proper and so righto, let's get on with it. I love the script, I love the direction, I love the acting. Like, I don't usually do this, but I had to look up the cast list, and I'm not going to read it off because every single face in this entire film, whether or not they're on screen for 30 seconds or the entire screen time, they have presence, and I'm like, I know you, and I know you, and I know you, and they perform their part with such, again, grace and control, and they slip into these little kind of off-kilter roles. There's repeated jokes, there's a rhythm and a pace to the pauses and to the build-up. There's characters that, like, for the most part seem like they're almost from a different film, and yet it somehow works. The fact that some of them seem like almost aware of the dramatic tension. Again, the booth. The confessional booth, where some of them are really aware of the dramatic tension in a weird way, and some of them are not, and they like, camera on, get on with it. It's beautiful. I love the plethora of actors. I like the fact that it's talking about a lot of themes in terms of war and social change and the time of age, the power of the unseen and the power of the help, for lack of a better term, the kind of the commitment to a role, whether or not that role is one that you are trained in or one that you are kind of dedicated to, and the breaking of that role when you've been so fixed into one position and trying to do something new, which is what a lot of these you know, characters do. It's very exciting, it's very interesting. It's not for everyone, I'm going to say that. It really isn't for everyone, but I found this truly delightful. It was a perfect snuggle up on the sofa with a glass of wine watch. I really, really enjoyed it. As I said, not for everyone, but I had such a good time. The sets, the costume, the music, the timing, the rhythm and the acting is all just so good. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to stop talking now. Feel free to comment, and I'll see you guys all next week for another review of some kind. Bye guys.